So we'll let everybody in now, I think. Hiya, welcome. Hi, Shell, it's you. How lovely.
Just unmute. Hi, ladies. You okay?
Hi, Anne-Marie.
Hi, how you doing?
I walk into. Hi, Sarah.
Good evening. Hi.
Hello.
We'll just do speaker only because that way we've got the not speaker, maybe we'll do host only. That's me, isn't it? Wait for everyone there. I think that's probably going to be okay, isn't it? So just so you all know, we are recording this. If you don't wish to be recorded, if you don't want to be shown, then you can switch your video off, but it should just show me, so that should be fine. Just a few housekeeping things. This is a 2-hour lecture. The first half will be recorded, and the first half will be examples of yoga therapy, and then going through what the program is, what the practitioner role is, with a PowerPoint. And then we're going to have some faculty members pop in and chat to you about what they're going to be doing on the course. And then we'll have questions at the end. But if you have questions as we're going through, then do type them in, and Ruby will be able to mediate those questions, and I can answer them as we go along. That way we can keep recording without anyone becoming recorded. So that should cover us for GDPR. I hope that's clear. Any questions, as I say, do feel free to type in the chat box, or ask Ruby directly, because some questions Ruby can answer herself. So find Ruby and ask her directly if there's any questions regarding the Teen Yoga Foundation or regarding the course. She can answer those directly. Right, so without further ado, let's get started. So very, very big welcome to everybody. I'm so pleased so many people could make it this evening. And my name is Charlotte Martinez. I know some of you, as some of you I have already taught, which is really exciting, and others are I don't know, and you're equally welcome. So this evening's webinar is about yoga therapy for mental health of young people, such an important topic. And I am Charlotte Martinez, and I'm the founder and the director of the Teen Yoga Charity, which has been in existence since 2004, so 22 years now. And 10 years as a charity and 20 years as a really solid organisation. We are a small charity, but we do big things. We've just a little bit about us. We've been part of the 3 biggest research projects on the topic of yoga and teenagers specifically, in youth work and education, and now also in clinical settings over the past 10 years. 2 of those research projects were funded by the EU Erasmus project, and the third research is being funded by Southampton University. So we're very proud to really champion this idea and this concept globally, actually. Presently, our focus is very much on bringing yoga more urgently to those who really need it within CAMHS and the NHS. And that's what this evening's talk is about. And I thought, what better way to start talking about this than practicing? As they say, a ton of theory is worth an ounce of practice. So we can practice and really know what we're talking about rather than just chat about it. So what would I do in a setting? I've designed a half-hour session, which I'm very happy for you to join in with if you like. You'll feel great if you do. Equally, you could just take notes, and if you're not feeling it, if you just had supper like me, you might not want to do too much movement. It's all chair-based, because that's what we do with young people to start off with. So it's very easy to do where you are. And it's just half an hour's practice to give you an idea of what can be done in a clinical setting with a young person. And then when I've finished this practice, I'll give you 4 or 5 takeaways that you can actually do yourself with any young person that you come across that you feel might need this. So the most common issue that we come across with young people today is any sorts of anxiety. It could be social anxiety, it could be exam-based anxiety, it could be relational anxiety, but anxiety seems to be at the base of a lot of the issues that we're seeing. So how I meet that in a clinical setting is often through a very well used practice, which comes from the Kundalini lineage. So we're going to stand up in the back of the room, so hopefully you can see me clearly. You don't see my whole body, but that's all right, you get the idea. And we're just going to shake. We're going to shake the whole body. So keeping the feet on the floor, you're going to shake the arms, shake the legs, and shake the knees. And at this point, you start to feel a little bit silly, so you've got to do it with the young person, and then you're going to make some sounds. You're going to wiggle your hips, you're going to wiggle your shoulders, wiggle your hands, and at this point, it might feel a little bit weird and a little bit odd, but as we get into it, it becomes more and more natural. We can start making noises, so just relaxing the jaw, relaxing the mouth, relaxing the head, because anxiety really sits in all parts of the body, and we sort of need to get rid of that before we can do anything else. So let's just shake it out, shake it out. And this is something that they would have done in drama, or they would have done it in gym or in PE, just to loosen the muscles. And we can carry on really making big movements with the arms and similar movements with the legs. As you see, sort of things that you might do like in football or in rugby, that sort of thing, just to get limber up and get into the body, as it were. So that's a nice way to start. And when I'm now going to change the narrative as if I'm talking to a young person. So this is how I would speak. So now we've got rid of the anxiety out of the body. I want you to see if you really ground yourself into the floor. Now, when we're worried and in our heads, then we tend to be very much, feel like, so many young people have told me, I feel like I'm just a head walking around. My body doesn't belong to me. So let's get that body belonging to ourselves. I want you to curl your toes. You can't see me, but you can imagine. And then just really stamp your feet onto the floor. Stamp them and feel the feet into the floor. You can hear my loose floorboard there. So stamping, getting that feeling of connection to the floor. And then spread the toes wide. Press down with your hands on your knees. Struggling a little bit to keep you all in frame there. And then spread the feet and just press down through the shin bone towards the feet. So really bringing your awareness to your feet. This is the grounding practice. Out of your head, into your feet. And just notice, what does the carpet feel like? What does the floor feel like? Is it soft? Is it hard? Is it noisy? And breathe, as if breathing deeply, and then exhale all your worry into the floor. We can do that one more time. Breathe in. And push all your worry into the floor, feeling grounded. Okay, so when I've done that, I'm going to ask all the young people, so how are you doing today? What's going on for you? And I might get a response like, yeah, a bit worried about exams. That's a big one this time of year, isn't it? A bit worried about exams. And I think, okay, should we see if we can do something about that, help you with that in some way? And this is where visualization is a fantastic tool in yoga, which we use quite a lot. And we can thread through the rest of our practice today. So let's do a little visualization of the exam. So I want you to just close your eyes for a second. And I want you to imagine the happiest place you can imagine. Might be on holiday, might be in your bed, a place where you feel really happy, safe and comfortable. And I want you to try and remember or feel, if it's your imagination, then try and feel what's the temperature like, what can you feel under your feet, what kind of clothes are you wearing, what's around you, how are you feeling inside? And hopefully, because it's your happy place, you're feeling happy. You're feeling quite content. Yeah? So just aware of that lovely feeling, feeling content and relaxed. Now, put that feeling in a little bottle. Just imagine you've just put that in a little bottle, put that to one side. Now, imagine your exam hall. Now, you know more or less what it looks like. There's lots of little tables, it's a big hall, somebody walking up and down. And look at yourself, you know, probably wearing your school uniform, and you've probably got a few things in your hand, pen, paper maybe. And just imagine yourself in that place. Notice how you feel. Now you might feel a little different. You might feel like you've got fluttering going on in your heart, on your belly. Maybe you feel a little bit uneasy. Let's see. Take a few deep breaths. And I want you to visualize sunlight all around that table where you're going to be sitting, and like a little bubble of calm around the table where you're going to sit. And you're going to walk towards your seat, and you're going to feel that bubble around you, and bring now that bottle of happy place, and imagine putting it on your table and shaking it all over the table, your happy place, and feel it in your body as well. And take a deep breath in and a long breath out. Imagine the breath out going out through your feet. Again, breathe in. And long breath out through your feet. Now, we'll put a forefinger and thumb together as we remember our happy place and what it feels like to be in our happy place. And that's going to be your anchor. We put the forefinger, thumb together, we bring the happy place and the feeling of the happy place to this exam hall. And we're going to build on that and give you a mantra. I can do this. 4 fingers. I can do this. We're going to do that 3 times. I can do this. And visualize yourself with ease, answering every question, turning the paper over, answering all the questions, enjoying the experience of sharing your learning, and finishing the exam and walking out confidently. I can do this. Okay, we're going to park that for a moment, and as we go through our mantra, we're going to do a few releases. So the neck release, we bring the arm down to the side, and we're just going to bring the right ear to the right shoulder as we release the neck. This is an area that gets quite tense when we study a lot and we're a bit anxious. So drop the shoulder down, bring the right ear to the right shoulder. I can do this. I can do this. And let's switch. Left ear to left shoulder, right shoulder dropping down. I can do this as we release our tension. I can do this. One more time. I can do this. You can experiment with this one a little bit and see if you bring your chin up a little bit, that becomes slightly different, chin down slightly different. And then we're going to bring the chin to the chest, hands behind the head. I can do this. Elbows up, elbows down, release. Shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. Similarly, you're going to get quite a lot of shoulder tension when we're anxious, worried, or we're studying a lot. So bring your shoulders up to your ears, tense, 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 and release. And notice the difference. One more time. Shoulders up to the ears, tense, 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 and release. So much you can do in the chair. Inhale and exhale. Last time. Inhale, exhale. Okay, so let's just feel into the breath at this stage, putting one hand on your chest, one hand on your tummy. And we just notice our breathing now. Just notice, sometimes our breathing is quite shallow. If we're anxious, it's bound to be more shallow than if you're not anxious. And sometimes we're breathing through our mouth. Maybe it's because we've got a cold, or maybe it's because we haven't thought about it. So let's just notice right now. It's really good for us yogis to do this too. Where is the breath? Which parts of the body are moving? Front and back. And as soon as you start thinking about your breath, you start breathing differently. Have you noticed? Breathing a little bit deeper into the tummy. Let's breathe in. And much, much longer as we breathe. Breathe in. Whole of the chest rises, whole of the belly rises, and a long breath out. And why is this a good thing to do? Because when we breathe in a particular way, we're hacking our nervous system. Yeah? So when the exhalation is long, think about it. In your day-to-day life, when do we sigh? When something is finished, when it's over, when we're relaxing. Yeah? So a long exhalation is telling our brain, it's over, we're okay, we're safe. Whereas a sharp intake of breath, I'm a bit worried. So we're going to hack the system and exhale long, which incidentally brings the parasympathetic nervous system on board, which is the relaxed nervous state. A really good thing to do. Something you can do at home all the time. So now we're going to do some standing up movements. We're just going to, standing up movements for young people are much easier than mat movements because they're just much easier to get your head around, right? So we're going to first do our warrior. You can't really see me very well. Let me see if I can get that a bit further back. So we're just going to start, actually we'll start with a chair. So bending both knees and arms up. And just looking up towards the ceiling. And we're going to take our mantra here as well, our visualization. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. As you're feeling really strong in your legs, yeah? Coming up, and we're going to do our warrior, which again is strong in the legs, which when we're using our quadricep muscles, we're burning the cortisol that builds up in the body when we're stressed out. So it's a good way to get rid of the cortisol that is flooding our system when we're stressed out. So bringing the left arm up, left leg forwards, bending the front knee, and then again, I can do this. I can do this, all the while noticing your breathing. So not holding your breath, taking some deep breaths. And let's swap sides. We're not holding any postures for any long length of time, but we are doing postures that make us feel strong. So strengthening the legs, but also just imagining that cortisol being used up by the big muscle, one of the biggest muscles of the body, the 4 quadriceps here. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Back to the breath, keeping the posture, feeling strong and able. Okay, So what we're going to do now is balancing. So our balancing postures are postures that help us focus. When we're not focused, we're not balanced. When we're balanced, we're focused. So again, the physical body connecting with the mind. Many young people find it hard to balance, not only because they're unfocused, but also because they're changing, their proprioception's changing all the time as they grow. So we're going to use a posture, just a tree, an easy tree. We might want to use the wall if it's difficult, and then palms together. There. Can you hear me? Did everybody hear me? Fingers up. That was just temporary. So I can do this. We're going to just keep our focus, bringing our palms into the centre. That gives us a centred feeling, but also pressing two sides of the body together helps us sort of feel grounded. Yeah? And release, and then we're going to do the other side. I can do this. Again, imagining your example, if that's your focus today, or whatever it is that's worrying you, and placing your happy place there, the feelings of a happy place as you focus. And release. And shake it out a little bit. So I just need to go back to my notes, which is behind here. Very good. And then we're going to come into a relaxation and a body scan, again in the chair. So for some yogis, this might feel rather odd, but it's a really lovely way to introduce yoga to young people, keeping them in the chair, keeping it something very familiar. So I hope you enjoy the body scan. Why not enjoy it for yourself rather than just listen? So we're going to sit up in the chair. You can lean back if you've got a back to your chair, or you can just sit up with your back straight. It works like that too. Feet on the floor, not crossing your legs. Hands on your knees. Bringing your awareness to your toes and your shins and your knees. Just scanning that part of the body, noticing is there any areas there that feel peculiar or feel numb or feel hot or cold. Scanning the body. So here we're introducing the concept of interoception, looking into ourselves, which is the opposite of vigilance, hypervigilance, when we're constantly looking outside ourselves, which of course is what's happening when we're performative and we're having our attention continuously fracked by social media and by other outside sources. So this is the beginning of what we call pratyahara, of looking inwards. So we just scan the feet and the shins and the knees. And obviously for this to happen, they need to feel super safe in the environment they're in and with you to start that inward journey. And we bring the awareness to your knees and your thighs. Notice how we feel. If there's any area, maybe you can feel the burn a little bit from those practices we just did. And the tummy, your lower back. Sometimes our lower back hurts if you've been sitting a lot. Noticing that. And then our chest. Noticing the inside of our chest, our heart maybe. Can you feel the heart beating? Some young people find this quite uncomfortable to notice their heart beating, so it's good to be aware of that. So you might like to say something like, if you're feeling uncomfortable feeling your heart, then you can move just to your arms and your hands and just notice the hands and the arms. You don't need to stay with that discomfort. And then all along the spine and the back, notice any areas there that feel hot or cold or numb or tingly, or anything else. And then the throat. Area of communication. How does the throat feel today? Jaw, face, head, ears. scanning the whole body. Now imagine the whole body is just being soothed by a warm sun. Wouldn't that be nice? Maybe back to your happy place. Maybe imagine what it might feel like to have every muscle in the body completely relaxed. So just notice what that might feel like. Relaxing all parts of the body. Shoulders drop, face relaxes. Tummy and chest are soft. Fingers and toes are relaxed. And of course, for many young people to do something like this, especially if there's something like an eating disorder or body dysmorphia, this can be quite a difficult practice. And we need to be super aware of which parts of the body are most acceptable to scan and which parts are least acceptable, so that we can help them build their resilience in accepting those parts of the body, and so that we can be aware of our own of their sensitivity, so we can help them not force the issue and be trauma aware in this particular practice. When it comes to breathing practices, there are so many we can do. I think the one that is probably the most popular is called the humming bee breath. And the way I teach that, we just simply put our hands on our head, bearing in mind this imaginary child we're working with has come in with anxiety. This is a perfect breath for that. Put our hands on our head. And I say we're going to do a breath that's basically hoovering up everything in your brain that's worrying you, or that's not, you don't want to have it there. We take a deep breath in, we're going to hum it out, and you're going to do it 5 times with me. So deep breath in. For that practice, some of us put the fingers in the ears, but for the young people, they often like to hear when you finish, because they don't want to be left doing it if you've stopped. So just having the hands on the head, feeling the vibration in the head can be enough for that practice. And then I would come back to the mantra that we gave them and repeat that, and we'll do it together. We maybe say it out loud. I can do this, and their happy place. And we would wrap it up there. And that would be about a 20-minute practice. So the takeaways that you can take from here, if you're not a yoga therapist but you're interested in this sort of work and you want to work with young people tomorrow, doing anything, the number one thing I would do, number one thing is check your breath. Do a breath check-in. How's your breath doing today? And just bringing your awareness to that will make a massive difference. Is it short? Is it long? Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you breathing through your nose? And we want to encourage a nose breathing, long breath. And that shift can make all the difference to the nervous system and maybe even more importantly, to sleep patterns and circadian rhythms. When we get into an optimal breathing practice, we find that sleep comes more easily, and therefore the circadian rhythm comes more easily, and therefore all the hormonal activity in the body seems to balance out more effectively. And then the next thing I would offer to the young people is the grounding, which was a very simple practice of simply stamping on the floor, feeling the feet on the floor, noticing the sound, noticing the feeling, so going into our senses, and sort of pressing down through the knees. So the grounding practice is number one practice for all our young people today, because most of them feel ungrounded. And that sense of ungroundedness often leads to or is a result of anxiety. And then also the other thing I would encourage you to encourage the young people for is interoception. Can you feel something in your body? Can you feel your heart beating, if that's not too tricky for them? Can you feel your food being digested? Can you feel your throat as you speak? The feeling inside your own body is the beginning of agency over yourself. Yeah, because most of our attention is constantly being fracked. It's the most valuable thing that we have to offer, our attention, and it's often being fracked by others, whether it's social media, whether it's teachers, whether it's friends, whether it's worry, whether it's outside events, whether it's the news. So bringing the awareness back into the body is the first step of agency, so interoception. So that's 3. Very easy to start with a mantra, an English mantra, so not a Sanskrit mantra, but an English mantra. All you have to do is find a sentence with 4 words in it. I can do this, or I belong here now. Add a little word, or I feel good now. And use whatever that young person needs. And it's often quite simple and quick to find what mantra would suit that child, and then encourage them to repeat it in different places with a lot of feeling, with a lot of conviction. So it becomes their sort of background noise, if you like, in their head. And that can sort of drown out any more negative chat that might be going on in their head, which would probably be connected to their anxiety and their wandering minds. And then a very simple one is the neck release. So a lot of young people are getting headaches through neck release. And so this is through not having their necks released, because they're feeling tense all the way through the neck, the jaw, and the upper back. So releasing the neck can reduce headaches. So those are the 5 takeaways that you can do tomorrow. Does anyone have any questions on this practice before we go on to look at the PowerPoint, where I'm going to go in more detail on what actually yoga therapy for young people looks like in reality? Yes, Lottie, would you like to ask it straight out? This is being recorded. If you'd rather not, you could just say it in the chat, but if you're okay with being recorded, then please go ahead and ask. You need to unmute yourself, I think, if you're there. Lottie, go ahead. Are you speaking? I can't hear you. Ruby, can you hear? Oh, okay. It won't let you unmute. Ah. It is unmuted, Lottie. But maybe just...
Oh, okay, sorry.
There.
Hi. Thank you for that. I was wondering, was that a group practice or one-to-one?
That could be a one-to-one practice. And that would be somebody who comes with anxiety. I might just do that one-to-one like that. But equally, that would work in a group as well. This time of year, you do get groups of young people worried about exams and so on. So that might work in a small group, yeah.
Okay. I've tried the Brahmari, the humming breath in a group of anxious teenagers, and they were all too anxious about the noise that they were making.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So I think
you
that
have to
made
be
them
the
feel
one.
worse.
Yeah, so you have to be the one who makes the most noise. Yeah, and I think that's right. I think you're absolutely right. Or you could just have it that it doesn't make any noise at all. They can just feel the breath going out. So you could just go, just without the noise, you know?
Yeah,
that might work as well.
nicely.
I think there's a combination of touching your head and breathing can be quite relaxing. But obviously, choose your breath. You know, a breath for anxious people might be much better to just hold the hand on the tummy and the chest. It depends. It's very individual, isn't it? And just noticing, again, touching the body as you breathe, so you're connecting the body with the breath. That could be very useful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Good question. Anybody else want to ask anything about that before we move on? There's so many other things you could do. That was just an example. Okay, well, feel free to ask as we go along as well. I'm just going to share my screen. So let's see. So this is the part where I'm going to show you a short PowerPoint about yoga therapy for young people, so you can get more of an overview rather than just my take on it. Is everybody seeing that okay? Thumbs up? Yeah, great, wonderful. So what is yoga therapy for young people? I think it's particularly when we're talking about mental health, I think that's a very specific area as opposed to physical issues, which is so extensive. I think it's quite handy actually that we're quite narrow. It's about regulation. It's very much about your relationship, building that relationship between you. That's a very key aspect. And it's about an embodied resilience in young people. So being resilient through your embodiment. Okay. Let's see. And so why is this an important topic to discuss? Because basically we have an unacceptable problem currently, which is that we have waiting lists of over a year in CAMS of people who are suffering greatly with mental health difficulties. And during that year, many things can happen, making it worse. I mean, sometimes we have issues where it's actually got better by itself, but more often than not, it's getting worse. And this is really quite unacceptable from a moral perspective, ethical and societal perspective. So my moral ambition was to find a solution to this unacceptable problem. And we feel like we really have found a solution. What we're finding is that people are presenting much more with anxiety, dysregulation, emotional overwhelm, trauma, and disconnection from themselves, feeling disconnected from who they actually are. And we've also noticed that talking therapies sometimes just do not work. And we'll see the research on that in a minute. We also know that CAMS, schools and youth services are under unprecedented pressure, resulting in an unacceptable problem of young people waiting for over a year to be seen. So yoga therapy is really quite an inexpensive and effective complementary pathway to support these young people. And it's already happening. The embodied approach really helps bridge the gap between the physiological stress that's felt in the body and the emotional understanding. So understanding our feelings in a physical way and then working with them on a physical level as opposed to talking about them. So what do we mean by yoga therapy? It's, of course, trauma-informed. The creating safety in the room and in yourself is absolutely number one. It's the most important thing we do. And that comes with choice and empowerment. So the young person always has a choice and always has agency in the space. In fact, they get more and more agency as the longer they come to you for. It's very developmentally sensitive, so we adapt to age, needs, culture, and context. We have a special section on the therapy course on special needs and how we adapt to special needs, but also on culture and how we adapt to various cultures. So that those two topics are very close to my heart. It's relational and adaptive, so we are working with the client. We're not working to or onto the client. We're connecting with the client and then we're co-regulating and engaging through our own curiosity and hopefully getting their curiosity to come as well into play while we're connecting with them and connecting with their lives and connecting with what's going on in their physical body through empathy, more than through talking. And we're using breath, we're using attention and body awareness to support our self-regulation, resilience and emotional balance in the young person. We also use a various group of tools such as sound, mantra you just saw, deep relaxation, various relaxation techniques depending on where we're at and what we're presented with. Various massage techniques depending on what we're presenting with. If there's a body dysmorphia, we might try and work much more with befriending the body, for example. Whereas if there's disconnect or ADHD, we might work with moving the body quite a lot to engage the person more effectively. It's often delivered in chairs, which is why I delivered that practice in a chair, so that you can see what it's like, and very highly adapted, so we can use it in all different circumstances, not only in a clinical setting, but also in schools, in youth work, at home, at the bus stop. So in Southampton, we have been running a pilot now since 2023, so that's 3 years now. And it's called the Yoga Practitioner Pathway. And it was one of my graduates, Jo Barker, who is the consultant psychiatrist there, who started off simply bringing yoga to her service users at CAMS in Southampton, and felt it was just too much next to her psychiatry job. She just didn't have the time to carry on. So she looked into bringing a yoga practitioner into her services. It was a lengthy interview process, which I was very involved in, finding the right person for this role. And Bernadette was found, and she's has a background in social work and also as a yoga therapist. So she was the perfect person for the role, and together with Bernadette and Jo, we collaborated for over a year to work out what would be the best way to make this work for the service users that were coming through. And we tried small groups of 4, of 6, and we tried single sessions with the service user, and we also tried sessions with the service user and carer. And we found that the sessions with the service user and the carer were the most effective, because what was going on there was that the carer too was learning certain practices and reminding the young person at home, and could be part of that journey with the young person. So that seems to be the way forward for them. However, in other CAMS units in Haringey, who I'm also collaborating with at the moment, partnering and consulting, they have found that small groups of 4 works better for them. So it's very much contextual. In Southampton, they engaged over 100 people in their first year, which is quite extraordinary considering it was a completely new idea that had to be sold, if you like, both to parents, young people, staff, and the multidisciplinary team. So that has just gone from strength to strength, and Bernadette now sees on average 6 young people per day for 6 weeks, and then that ends. And as I say, Derby and Haringey are also trialling this, and there's been quite a few other CAMS units being in touch who'd like to trial this as well. It's a low-cost support compared to other supports that the young person might come across, and gives on average a 1 to 8 return on investment for the CAMS unit compared to other pathways. The clinicians have observed there's a whole load of research coming through now. It's going to actually be published in July, but this is the first set of observations of coming through the qualitative analysis. The CBT therapist has mentioned that his anxiety was primarily experienced through his body and breathing. Having a yoga practitioner on the team gave him a breakthrough. And she says in another part of her report that he had come to the CBT several times without any results. So that after the yoga practitioner pathway, he no longer needed to be on the waiting list and he was discharged. So that's a massive cost reduction, but also success, obviously, for the CAMS unit. And the families, these are some quotes we're getting for the families. Before yoga, my child would hit out and shout. Now they take themselves away to calm down. So they have a self-regulation tool there. My son has told me what he's feeling and where, and he's never done this before. So he's now got this interoceptive capacity, and school has noticed a big change. These are just some of the many, many quotes that we received. And the children themselves are saying, it was the first time I noticed what was happening in my body before I exploded. And no one had ever taught me what calm felt like before I'd started yoga. I now have new ways to stop the swirling in my tummy. So how do we measure the impact? This is a massive question which we'll be going into in some detail in our 400 hour, is how do we best research yoga? Because we've found that the tools that are currently being used by clinicians are not the correct tools, are not capturing everything that's happening. However, the psychologists who have been running this research have used the ARCADS, which is a scale of anxiety and depression, parent-reported SDQs, which have been very helpful to get the parents' support, and then bodily awareness tool, self-compassion tool, and mindfulness measures. And we've noticed improvements across all measurable domains. So, as I mentioned, the University of Southampton is sponsoring 2 doctorates, one who's studying a qualitative methodology and one quants, and that will be published in July 2026. And we will be the first to share those results because they look very good at the moment. And the groups that this yoga therapy tends to benefit the most tends to be those with anxiety, those with emotional dysregulation, those with trauma, those with school avoidance, those with eating disorders, body disconnect, and non-verbal presentations. What hasn't come up on this list, which also has been very, very clear to us, is the ADHD group. So the ADHD group have been had some very positive results through this yoga therapy. In fact, we noticed that a drop of 87% in anxiety and depression among all the young people who went through the yoga practitioner pathway. And another percentage, which hasn't come up on this slide, is that 81% of the young people asked whether they wanted to do yoga therapy, because it's a question they're asked, they don't have to do it, said that they wanted to give it a go, which means the uptake is much greater than it was in the first year when nobody really knew what it was. So that's an important point as well. So here, why does this matter in medicine? Because it's important that we get in early. I think that prevention is always better than cure. And I feel that if we can bring these practices into young people's lives where they are, in schools, in homes, in youth work, in the GP surgery, then the chances are we're going to stop the escalation. So we're bringing in the self-regulation, the self-efficacy early. We're engaging hard-to-reach young people who don't engage in talking therapies or talking. It's very low cost to scale, and it's complementary. It's not oppositional to any other intervention. So, together with the team at Southampton and 3 other CAMS staff, we are offering a 400-hour course starting in October, which is going to train the yoga practitioner pathway, so yoga therapists for young people's mental health. And it's a 13-month online flexible studying course with online live supervision, looking at psychology and adolescent development, as well as safeguarding trauma awareness, practical and reflective integration, but also looking at current research and evidence base. It's very practical and hands-on. It's designed to fit around full-time work. It's tailored to each student across the world. And of course, the CAMS faculty will be bringing real-life situations, and also the practicalities of working within CAMS are going to be very much part of the course, so that you come away with real clear understanding of what's necessary from you as a therapist working within the NHS. It's designed particularly to look at mild to moderate issues, both therapeutically and preventively. Although Bernadette is also working with severe issues as well. The aim is not to train clinicians, but highly skilled trauma-informed practitioners able to work safely and collaboratively alongside existing systems of care. We feel that there's a hole, there's a gap. Many CAMS units are not able to fulfill all their roles. They have the capacity for people within the CAMS units, but they haven't got the staff. They can't find the staff, but they have the salary. So this is how Jo got this in, because she just asked the manager to fill a staff role with this yoga practitioner instead of the staff role that she couldn't find. I can't remember what that was, whether it was a clinical psychologist. So this course will be training qualified yoga teachers to work with CAMS, schools, youth services and community wellbeing programs. And the kind of people who will be coming on the course will also be clinical psychologists, paediatricians, physiotherapists, mental health workers, mental health nurses, and so on. So our vision really is, what if emotional regulation, radical self-care, self-awareness, and embodied resilience became as fundamental to education as literacy itself? What if we were teaching young people how to take care of themselves and avoid this anxiety escalation that's happening at the moment through the practices and tools of yoga? What we've noticed in Southampton particularly is that the young people are now sharing it amongst themselves, and the parents are sharing it amongst themselves. So they're going away after the 6 weeks with Bernadette, and they're coming together like NCT groups, and they're sharing the practices. And the young people going back to school and sharing the practices that they've been taught with their peers, which is a fantastic outcome. It's the best outcome possible, really, because you're getting a really big spread of the practices throughout the community. This is our contact details if you'd like to get in touch about any of this. We were meant to have Jo on our panel this evening, but unfortunately her mother had a fall and she's taken her to the A&E, and she can't be with us today. Jo is the psychiatrist at CAMS who really had the vision, together with me, of creating a yoga therapy post in her CAMS unit. So I just want to speak a little bit about her experience and what it's been like, just so you sort of get the feel of what she would be saying here today, because I know it so well. And she was saying that initially, because it was her, the multidisciplinary team were quite open to the idea of her bringing yoga into the space. And because it was her, the parents had a lot of confidence in her. And I think it was particularly successful after a period of time, a period of trial and error. And what we did was we really listened to the young people themselves, and we responded to what they said about what worked and what didn't work. When they brought Bernadette in, it was a bit like starting all over again, because now it was somebody who was spending 100% of their time offering the yoga therapy as a tool within their setting. And that became a bit more difficult. She had difficulty. She had difficulty with bringing boys in. She had 80% of the people coming to her were girls, and the boys didn't really think it was anything for them. The multidisciplinary team didn't really understand what it was she would be doing in the room, so couldn't really refer to her. And the groups didn't work so well for her. She didn't find a way for the groups to work well. So the first year was really finding our way in what would work well for her. And what we needed to do was to create information booklets. So we needed to educate people about what happens in the room. What is yoga therapy? How does it work? What can you expect to happen? What do you have to wear? You know, what will happen? And when we did that, we brought that into schools, we brought that into youth work, we brought that into the community. The number of people started coming was much higher. And then what's been going on since then is there's been a natural conversation within the community where now there is a flow of people, and she's never without anyone in her room. Whereas I think initially that was a struggle to get people through the door, but now that's not a struggle anymore. Partly because the multidisciplinary team knows what they do, know what she does, and so they know to send it to her. And partly because the community know what she does and knows that it works. So the more people obviously coming out with the reduced symptoms and with tools that help them in daily life, the more popular the role becomes and the more effective the role becomes. So Jo also says how lucky she was to have a manager who was creative enough to imagine doing something different with the money than had been initially planned. And that's something which I think is an essential part of it all. And the other thing that Jo often says is how important it is and how different it is for young people to actually have fun when they come to CAMHS units, because often it's a really, not unpleasant, but it's not a particularly fun experience going to CAMHS units. So she said the fact that they're actually enjoying themselves and having a good time is part of the success of the practitioner role. The people on the faculty who are going to be training these yoga practitioners, I'll go through them one by one, is obviously Jo Barker, Dr. Jo Barker, the consultant psychiatrist in CAMHS in Southampton, specialising in eating disorders, but obviously works with all young people. And then the clinical psychologist Lucy Clark, who's also a yoga therapist specialising in asylum seekers and refugees, and so trauma. She works a lot with EMDR, but also with yoga therapy. Then we have Dr. Stanford Wong, who is a psychiatrist in London, and he is also the main yoga therapy teacher on the Yoga Campus Yoga Therapy course. His background is in Desika Cha yoga therapy and obviously allopathic medicine. Then we have a therapist, Paloma Plazas, who will be joining us hopefully in 10 minutes or so to talk a little bit about her role in this faculty. And she is a play therapist and an art therapist, and she'll be talking about the role of the therapist and non-verbal therapy for children and young people, and how that plays such an important role in healing. And then we have Dr. Lisa Harwood, who has just finished her doctorate on the impact of yoga for special needs, for young people with special needs, and how that works for neurodivergent young people. And then we have Dr. Harilal, who is a yoga therapy teacher in India. He's been teaching yoga therapy in India from the Indian perspective for the last 20 years, and is highly knowledgeable in Indian perspective of yoga therapy, bringing in the yoga philosophy as well as the physical aspects. Then we have Swamini Brahma Prajnananda, who is a Vedantic teacher and a psychotherapist and psychiatrist from India. And she'll also be talking about the modern Western psychology model versus Vedanta, and how yoga therapy works in relation to psychology. And then we have Dr. Shirley Tellis, who is the head of the research institute in Haridwar, is the biggest yoga research institute in the world, and she will be talking about the evidence base for yoga therapy for young people's mental health worldwide. And then Dr. Nick Carney, who's also going to be looking at a similar topic, but more looking forwards towards what could be the model for yoga therapy research going forward. What sort of tool do we need to create to really capture what yoga therapy does in the room? And then I'm also on the faculty. I'll be filling up all the gaps, bringing in my understanding from working in hospital settings in the UK with sectioned patients using yoga therapy, and also obviously my understanding of working one-to-one with young people over the last 20 years. And then finally, we have Dr. Steph Levine, who is an Ayurvedic doctor, and she will be sharing her insight in Ayurveda and how Ayurveda helps us with our mental health, particularly with young people's mental health. And she's been one of our main contributors to Teen Yoga's newsletters and social media on this topic for the last 5 years or so. So that's the faculty. So I'd be very happy to take any questions while we wait for Paloma to join us in the next 10 minutes over the PowerPoint, or any topic really that you feel you'd like me to cover in this talk. Either you can write them in the chat, or you can open up and talk to me directly. No questions. I think what I'd like to say is that it's very important that the multidisciplinary team is behind the yoga practitioner pathway, and if that needs to happen, the yoga practitioner themselves has to be the educator, if you like, of the rest of the team, and they have to be the one who can who helps them understand what's actually going on in the room. And we're going to be doing a little short documentary with the young people who work with Bernadette at the moment to get a little bit more clarity about what happens in the room, that we can share that documentary with MTDs across the country so that they know what that means. Okay, so first Lottie, and then we're going to Shell. Go ahead, Lottie. Let's see if you can unmute yourself this time. Yeah.
Right, thanks. I was wondering, on one of the slides, you mentioned that this yoga therapy is working better for hard to reach young people. Is that, I definitely agree with that. I'm just wondering, how have you managed to prove that, and in what way?
That's a very good question, and probably a question more for Joe and for the researchers at Southampton University. I'll do my best to respond to it in my capacity as a sort of overviewing the whole thing. Generally speaking, the hard to reach kids do not feel that they have the mastery of the language that they can explain what's going on. And generally speaking, we're talking about hard to reach kids, generally speaking, will have a history of ACE, so adverse childhood experiences, which bring in trauma. And when we have trauma, the trauma sits in the body. Most of us have heard Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. And when we start with the body, we start with where the problem is. So there feels, for the young people who have been hard to reach, my experience and Bernadette's experience is that they feel seen when we see what's going on in their bodies, because their bodies don't lie. Yeah. And when you start working with the body, you're working with trauma that's lodged in the body. So basically, in short, the hard to reach kids are hard to reach because often there's trauma there. Yoga works directly with physical trauma, and mental trauma through the body. So so a a solution has been found immediately, that there's a release happens immediately. That's a very convoluted answer to your question, but I think it answers the question, doesn't it? Do you, or follow on, Lottie, if you feel you need more clarity, follow on. Yeah, oh, you're all good. Okay, fine. Okay, so chat, we had a few questions. Would your approach be self-employed or employed? Bernadette is employed by the NHS. She's a full-time employment, and yeah, that's so she's there 9 to 5 every day. That's how it works. And then, how does it work fitting around a job? How's the course broken down? So Charlotte's asked that question. So the course is, I'm trying to remember because it's all new. You know, we've just designed it. Ruby might be better at this than me. We have a webinar. Have you answered it? Have you answered it in there? Oh, there you go. Yeah. So Ruby's answered it by. I think it'd be more accurate if you have a look on the web on the website. But as far as I can remember, the way we've designed it is we have a webinar once a month, and you have a tutorial as well. So basically, there's quite a lot of self-paced learning. And then the webinars, when we all come together and we talk about our experiences, and we share our knowledge and we share our understanding. So the majority of the course is self-paced, but you have these check-ins with your mentor, supervisor, and you have the webinars. So you need to look online to be absolutely sure when they are. I hope that answers your question, Charlotte. Do ask again if that hasn't answered your question. Yes, very similar to it's exactly the same design as the foundation course, the 100-hour course, but it's not as intense because obviously it's over 13 months as opposed to 3 months. So it's not as intense. And then Anne-Marie, are the young people usually engaging in trauma reprocessing work at the same time as doing the course of yoga and trauma reprocessing work? Anne-Marie, would you like to just clarify what you mean there? Are the young people usually engaging in trauma reprocessing work?
I guess I'm just wondering if it's a kind of staged approach. So have people usually done safety and stabilization, or does that happen alongside the yoga?
That happens
before
alongside.
They begin EMDR or CBT, trauma-focused CBT. I was just wondering how the pathway would work.
Yeah, so the pathway, I mean, as I've tried to explain, there's so many different tools that we use within the pathway, and they can also be simultaneously seeing a clinical psychologist, for example, who would be doing the stabilization work and the trauma processing work with them, and that the yoga sometimes facilitates that, because the body is being addressed, if that makes sense.
Great. Yes, I'm a clinical psychologist up in Highlands in CAMS in Scotland, but I was just wondering, are there any CAMS services in Scotland kind of using this approach that you know of?
That I know of. I know that Joe and Bernadette have been approached independently by some CAMS units, but I believe it's only in England.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, this has been so helpful today.
Well, I'm very excited you've come, Anne-Marie. I'm very excited.
It's been a very exciting talk, really.
Oh, good. Has it made sense to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, Fantastic. It really has. And I think more and more, certainly in our service, we're finding that the talking therapies aren't enough. We need body-based approaches. And for those difficult to reach young people who are, in their homes, in their beds, don't want to leave their computers and their devices. And so it's just finding other ways, and even just being able to do it out in nature. So, being able to do groups outdoors and things. Yeah. We're very keen on that type of nature-based approach as well. But as you said, it's about having the infrastructure where the service are happy to be creative enough to allow these types of things to develop within the organisation as well.
I mean, as I say, I think one of the biggest convincing arguments is the fact that in the first year alone, including the cost of the course, the return of investment is 8-1. In the second year, the return of investment is 24-1 in downstream costs. So in what we're finding is cases which normally would have escalated either obviously to psychiatry meetings or on to tier 4 are no longer escalating. So that's where the savings are happening. And it's obviously it's very hard to make the financial case for preventative methodologies, but one has to make certain cases. And I think also the other case of so many CAMHS units not actually being able to fulfill certain roles simply because it's not a popular place to work, quite frankly. And then bringing in yoga therapists into those roles that are empty for, you know, a relatively small fee. We're talking band 5, you know, it's actually the impact it's having is it's a no-brainer. And as you say, we're having an increased amount of selective mutes or stay-at-homes or social anxiety, where language and communication is really a challenge. So working with the physical body makes a lot of sense. And what's been really interesting for us as well is the sheer amount of physiotherapists who've been through this course, who've also seen it from the other perspective of we're getting such a high level of what's called FND, functional neurological disorders, of young people coming in with physical issues that there's actually no medical reason for. So we need to understand, say the physiotherapist, the mind-body connection here. There's something showing up in the body that's a mental health issue, and we need to understand that. So they're coming from other perspective where yoga's really helping them. So it functions so holistically across the medical model, and it's such a simple practice. Really, we're not training clinicians. You know, we're training people who know and embody yoga themselves and understand it. So that makes it a much more approachable and easy tool for anyone really to access. Even clinical psychologists could train in this and use it as part of their toolkit as well. You know. But thank you for your insight, Anne-Marie. Very, very nice to hear from you. Thank you. So in Lottie, whereabouts in England? It's Derby, Haringey and Southampton at the moment. But we, as I said, Joe and Bernadette have heard from quite a few other CAMHS units who are keen to bring this on, but they haven't as yet. So I think with the work that we're doing and this short documentary that we're going to make about what actually works and how it works in Southampton, I think that will bring a lot more demand, and people like Anne-Marie who have the insight and you know, working with the young people, noticing that the language isn't working so much for all of them anymore. I think we're going to get more in. So more questions. Shell, what would this look like? Do we need to organise a placement? Sorry, Shell, you need to. What would this look like? Do you know what? Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So when we do this course, yes, we're not guaranteeing you a job, I'm afraid, Shell. But yes, I think working with your local CAMHS units and collaborating with them in some way or another, we need to speak further with Joe and Bernadette about how that might look and what that could look like. But yeah, I think that might be a nice way of doing it. But what we definitely would ask you to do is we would have practicum where you would be working under supervision with young people with mild anxiety, for example, and we'll be supervising that work so that you have a sort of portfolio of work that you will be doing under supervision that you can then present to a CAMHS unit, for example, something like that. But again, that's Joe and Bernadette's area. It's not my area of expertise, so they will be able to speak to that more closely. Hopefully we can organise another one where they can come and answer those sort of questions for you. Do you know of any institutions that would be willing to sponsor or part fund the course? Charlotte, wouldn't that be wonderful? I think if you had a job at an institution, they might part fund it, but I don't think that they would part fund it if you're not working with them currently, unfortunately. Julie, how does the yoga therapy differ from regular teen yoga training, and do you do this training? Do you have to have the teen yoga qualification? So The main, I mean, there's so many ways it differs. There's so many ways it differs. Primarily the fact that we have this massive faculty that I sort of went through in some detail earlier, who all bring quite considerable expertise to the course. I mean, things that I have no clue about, they will be able to talk to you about, particularly the way CAMS works and the various more severe mental health issues that they come across and how the yoga supports them and what we can and can't do. I think also we're going to be focusing primarily on very small groups, high needs, or one-to-one, and what therapeutics looks like in those sort of situations, what we need to think about as therapists. And so we're going to up our skills as therapists on this course quite considerably. I think you will feel when you finish this course more than ready to work with quite difficult cases. In a way, with the foundational course, it was more really for you to feel confident when you get a mild anxiety situation in a school or in a youth setting. This is much more specifically, how do we work with X, Y, or Z in a clinical setting using yoga therapy? So it's much deeper, which is why the 100-hour course is called Foundation in Therapy, and this is not called a foundation because it's going into the depth of it. And also we probably go into much more depth around the evidence base and also the breadth and depth of what yoga can actually offer in terms of just psychology really and perspectives. So from yoga therapy, yoga philosophy and so on. So that will be, the Indian cohort will bring that into us as well. So we'll be learning a lot from them, I should think. Hopefully that's answered your question. Oh, I see Ruby's answered it as well. Thank you, Ruby. Good. I'm expecting Paloma. Has she come in, Ruby? Have you seen her in? No. Okay, she'll be with us in a minute. Any more questions? I'd love to say that you are guaranteed a job after this, but I can't say that, I'm afraid. But I do, I have noticed that Anne-Marie's voice is not a lone voice in the wilderness. It's actually very representative. And in fact, it might be of interest for you to hear that we were invited to become fellows of the NIA last year, which is the innovation network of within NHS. So we went through a whole process of applying for that, and we get through to the very last round where they said, yes, this is definitely the sort of thing we should be supporting in innovation within the NHS, is an embodied approach of non-pharmaceutical support for young people. So that's something they've encouraged us to apply again this year to being part of that. But what that's led to is a whole host of contacts within NHS England who want to bring us closer to the CAMS units and to the managers of the CAMS unit across England, Scotland and Wales. So that's something that we'll be collaborating with through the year. How many places, Shell? We're going to keep the places limited to probably around 20, 22, because we want to make sure everybody gets the education they need, and so that we can really get to know each other as a cohort and support each other. I think if the cohort's too big, it's going to be harder to create that sort of belonging and support that we need for the course. So it's going to be a select few. We're selecting at the moment, so it's first come first serve. Obviously we've had quite a few applications already, and a few people have been taken onto the course. So yeah, apply now if you're interested. And Lisa, would this course be more specific to clinicians, and was wondering how much yoga you feel can make a difference 10 minutes in the morning? Oh, Lisa, I think 10 minutes in the morning is going to make all the difference in the world. Put it this way, I meditate and breathe every morning, and if I don't, I notice a massive change to my day, and that just takes me half an hour. So I think if you can make 10 minutes every day of any sort of yoga, whether it's yoga. I mean, our toolbox is so huge, right? We have yoga nidra, we have a body scan, we have physical postures, we have visualizations, we have meditations, we have loads of different breathing exercises. All of them have specific outcomes. So choosing your specific practice and sticking to it and repeating it every day is going to definitely have an impact. 10 minutes every day is way better than 3 times a week, an hour and a half. Definitely. And would this course be more specific to clinicians? I wonder what you mean by that. It's specific to yoga therapy. I don't think there's much overlap with what you would have learned as a clinician. I think possibly the only topic, if I'm answering your question correctly, would be around the therapeutic model, like what is, how do we become really good therapists? I think maybe that might be the only overlap. Everything else will be new to clinicians.
I was just interested because I work in a school, so I'm interested in the course, but we're not in such a not severe, where we do get a lot of school refusal. Anxiety is unprecedented at the moment, and I'm a TA, so I work with interventions in the morning, so I could have that 10 minutes before I do the rest of my intervention, which I think would feed positively within the whole.
This is my vision. This is my vision, Lisa. That we have people like you in the places where the children are, where you're meeting them every single day and you're capturing them before they've got onto the CAMS waiting list, right? And before waiting for a year, something to happen, you're capturing it before that's happened, right? And before the escalation. That's my dream. It needs to be as common as literacy. This is embodied literacy that we should all learn and teach and share, so that we create a kind of baseline resilience, mental health resilience among our young people, so they can go out in the world and instead of sharing what's going on now, sharing Ritalin and sharing marijuana, they're sharing the yoga practices, because they're sharing the Ritalin because it works. They'll share the practice because they know it works, which is what's happening in Southampton. It's happened in various other areas in the UK where we've had intrinsic yoga in the curriculum. So I think that's my dream, Lisa. You should totally do that. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
No question. Supported course fee. So Shell, there's 3 fees. One fee is the supported fee, which means people who are unemployed or very low salary. And then there's the regular fee, which is 5,500, and then there's the benefactor fee. People who feel they can pay a little bit more to support the charity can pay that fee. Thank you all for your questions. We now have Paloma with us. Are you there, Paloma? Open your mic. I can see her coming in. Did you see her? Let's see. Multi-speaker. Paloma, open your mic. So you just need to unmute yourself. There we go.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I needed you to let me unmute.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So now,
Yes.
everybody, I'd love to introduce you to Paloma Plazas, who is one of our faculty. Paloma is a therapist here in Somerset, where I work, and she has worked many, many years with children. And she will be teaching aspects of therapeutic holding, really, to the course students. So, Paloma, I think the first question I'd like to ask you about this is why do you think yoga therapy could be helpful for young people today? What is it about yoga therapy that you think might be, because you're working with kids every day?
Yeah, well, good afternoon to everybody. And I had the pleasure to start working with the team at Teen Yoga on this course, which I think is fabulous. And I hope it reaches a lot of people and a lot of children and teenagers. So in my practice as a trauma specialist, I have found that the connection to the body is so important for the work we do with children. Embodiment is a gateway to access the nervous system. So you can do big things or you can do little things, but especially with children and obviously with teenagers as well, the results are so evident and fast. You can do a lot with embodiment. To talk in a way, I use kind of the idea that we're talking to the nervous system of the child or the teenager, not directly but indirectly. So using being able to read the body language, your own body language as a therapist, and the interaction that creates, that special relationship of client and therapist, is precious because you can do a lot with that. It's very fine as well, it's very subtle. So creating and developing a practice as a professional that allows you to be in tune with what's happening to you, and then therefore being able to read also what happens to the children, to the teens that are with you, is really important.
Thank you, Paloma. That's super insightful. I've also like to actually ask you to tell a story which you tell in your when you're recording, about working with young people who simply don't talk. And you had one child who you worked with, and I don't know how many sessions you had where
Yes.
he didn't
Yes.
speak. First, let's start there. How many sessions was it before he spoke?
It must have been, I don't know, 4 months, once a week sessions. So when I was training, the story is that when I was training to become a play therapist, which is the first thing I did when I trained, now I am a dyadic developmental psychotherapist, but I still do a little bit of play therapy. So when I was training to become a play therapist, we started doing sand tray training, which is to work with symbols in the sand tray with children. And we had to be in silence for 45 minutes, holding space for other colleagues who were doing their sand trays. And I was like, we're never going to be for 45 minutes sitting, focusing, touching, being really in touch with what's happening to you, what the sand tray is producing on you, and what resonates for you. And the second client I had when I was training was a child who for 4 months sat in front of the sand tray in silence and did not invite me to play with him in the sand tray. He was just letting me be there, holding the space for him. And that's what he needed. He needed that calm, that space, that relationship provided for him, where there were no requests or disruptions, and he processed his emotions and his inner world through the sand tray with my presence and me holding him in silence.
Yeah. So this is an example of how, working with our bodies and not with words, maybe we go a bit deeper. I think something Paloma says often, which I love, is, we're lending our nervous system really to regulate the other person, and then through physicalities we're teaching them how to do that for themselves and how they can do it for others, so it becomes a sort of knock-on effect. Paloma, before you came on, you and I had a very brief conversation about the questions I was going to ask you, and I've completely forgotten what those questions are. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add about
there are two things. There are two things to what you just said. I think what is interesting to notice is that when we're talking about that lending of our nervous systems as professionals, teachers do it as well. I mean, we do it in different roles. It's a movement. It's not a static thing. It's not a thing that happens in one moment and then disappears. It happens from the beginning, from the start of the interaction. And sometimes it travels farther from the therapeutic room or the classroom, and it travels into the cars when they're going back home with their parents, or you know, when they are outside in the playground with their peers. So it's not a static thing, and it creates movement. Some days you can see it is stronger, some days it can be a bit thinner, and that is also part of that eye that you develop, that capacity to observe the child in the relationship with you. I was just looking at something beautiful today, which is the way the Steiner therapy technique, teaching technique, teaches children to ask for the teacher to hear them. And the teacher just placed a hand in the teacher's shoulder. The teacher puts his hand on the child's hand, and that is a non-verbal conversation that says, teacher, I need you. And the teacher says, I know you need me. I am here, but I'm busy with something else right now, and I'll be with you in a minute. All this without any words. And then the teacher turns around and says, okay, now tell me, what is it that you need? So I thought that was also a beautiful example.
Yeah, so much of our communication is wordless. So much of our communication is word. I mean, majority of our.
But when we do it purposefully, it becomes a very powerful tool.
Right. Yeah.
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 I guess the other thing that I would like to add is that in this course, my part has been also focused on developing your own practice. So I talk about the ethical principles, and I talk about practical principles that are linked with the ethical principles that we follow, obviously through the yoga tradition, but also, you know, in life, and also as practitioners when we are working with children and young adults or young people. In that we've it's not we have to abide by them, but it's also the reasoning behind it and how that informs every action that we take in the session with our clients, with the children. Yeah, in how we hold the space, how we create safety, how we plan our sessions, and so on. I mean, we touch on a lot of themes there that we could expand each one of them, but they were
No, I think in short, Paloma's role is, and this is very short and is very simplified, is, you know, really bringing our awareness to therapeutic techniques and the issues around becoming a very, very good therapist, in essence, which Paloma is. So sharing her knowledge with us is very, very gratifying. Thank you so much, Paloma, for your time. I'm very happy.
Thank you for having me.
I look forward to, hopefully you guys will meet her again if you come on the course. I also have with me Dr. Nick Carney, who is a doctorate in education and online learning. He's sitting here next to me. And Nick's background is very much in research in education. And I thought it would be interesting for us to have a look at, you know, research in yoga, and the shortcomings actually of the tools that have been used in, and the sort of search that's been going on since the 1970s about, you know, how do we research yoga to find the right outcomes. This is something that Bernadette really has been fighting for, because the tools they were using were not showing the outcomes that were not capturing the outcomes. So Nick has designed several of our Erasmus Plus research projects, and also looked at the research that has been done on yoga for young people over the last 50 years. So first of all, Nick, would you like to speak to the group about the shortcomings of research? In the beginning, I know we talked about Satya Khalsa's interest in doing RCT trials in yoga. Why do you think that's not going to capture what we're looking for? What's the problem with doing RCTs in yoga?
Well, it's difficult, particularly because what we're doing is a therapeutic intervention that is not easily programmatizable, so that it can be done in exactly the same way across a whole load of different sites. in order to make the kinds of comparisons that take place in a lot of RCTs. We have worked quite extensively in the past to look for ways of developing, if you like, a common ground between that, if you like, very flexible program that we implement, listening to the needs of the students and therefore giving them what they need each day, and fitting that within to a framework that is, if you like, susceptible to a treatment in an RCT. We're currently working on this. The work, have you mentioned the work at Southampton?
Yes, quite a lot. We've gone extensively into that.
Well, the work at Southampton, that will, the results of that will be published by the University of Southampton, hopefully in July, and that will be an important step. And our next step after that, looking at particularly at the healthcare research dimension, is we're looking to do feasibility studies in a series of different CAMS units in order to look at the ways in which what we do lands in different CAMS units and what kind of parameters, criteria, etc. are operating. And that would be the first step towards doing a large scale RCT to, if you like, develop and extend these very promising results that we've had in Southampton, and indeed that we've had in other areas. One of the challenges with yoga research, particularly for young people over the years, has been that there's quite a lot of very small studies, but they're so small that they're not really generalizable. They're very often literally like a group of 15 in a secondary school somewhere, which produces interesting results, but always the reviews say more research is needed. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Does anyone have any questions around research and yoga? Because it is a very new field, really, given it's only really started in 1975 and only by one person. And that's been, you know, it's built on the graph is quite impressive in the last 20 years, but we're still really looking for the perfect tool to measure what actually happens in a yoga therapy session. We're looking at educational tools, we're looking at health tools, we're looking at psychology tools, but none of them really capture. We use the WEMWEBS tool for our hippocampus project, the 2-year Erasmus Plus project, which was slightly adjusted for young people. And we did find there was some interesting results from that, wasn't it? The increased.
Well, it was actually a very promising set of results that came out of that. That was an Erasmus project. It worked very much in the youth and education fields, and we used an adapted version of WEMWEBS where we brought in some sleep items into the questionnaire.
That's right.
And some perceived stress items from the perceived stress scale. And the results were very promising. However, in the end, we weren't able to publish because there were discrepancies in the way the different countries, because in these Erasmus projects, you have different countries and different levels, if you like, of research literacy across the teams. We had discrepancies that meant that the whole population couldn't be treated as one at the level of publication, although there were clearly very strong indications that the results were powerful. I think that in recent years, in fact, it's worth mentioning that there has been some very interesting research done, particularly in India, focusing on young people and the kinds of outcomes that can be expected from yoga. And we do actually have some summaries of that work that we've put together in order to give an idea of the current panorama. I think that their progress is being made. We feel as if we're sort of one large-scale project away in each of the three areas we work in: youth work, education, and the NHS, from really, if you like, pushing down the door, proving it once and for all that it really does work. Although the experience of everyone who's doing it is that it works, and in a sense that kind of research level evidence is is more to convince policymakers, decision makers, etc., that this is something to commit to.
So, as you can hear, we do feel it's important to have that sort of, research backup and the evidence base, and to do it correctly. And one of our jobs is actually to find the right tool that's going to measure that. So thank you very much to Nick and to Paloma. That's two of the faculty you got to meet today. Hopefully we're going to do another meeting where you get to meet the rest of them. But does have any questions around research? I can answer it as well. Or are you happy with that? Okay. Well, if that's the case, I think we'll close there. We do have another 20 minutes, but I think I've sort of covered everything I wanted to cover. Yeah, if you're interested, well, very, very happy to take any questions via email or online. We are always open to chatting on Facebook or Instagram. And our general email is info@teenyoga.com. That comes to both me and Ruby and Louisa, who are the main Teen Yoga team. And yeah, very, very happy to have met so many of you today, and very happy for your questions. And I really hope that this has answered your questions, and that you've come away convinced of how wonderful yoga therapy is going to be for young people, and is for young people across the world, really. And that we're quite lucky in many ways to be living in a country that is, despite maybe some of our thoughts, that is open to innovation and is open to new ideas. And I think we could be at the beginning of this, which is for many a very new idea and is going to take some educating. So I urge you to educate yourself in such a way that you have a very clear, very convincing clinical elevator pitch for why yoga therapy works. Maybe you can take that from this talk, or maybe ask us, and we'll give you some social media tips on how to do that, because I do think we need to educate people on how powerful this could be, and how many hundreds of thousands of pounds we can save the taxpayer and the NHS by introducing this to young people all across the nation, both England, Scotland and Wales. It's certainly my vision, and I really feel that it's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years or so. So thank you very much for your support and for your interest, and do tell others about what we do. Do get in touch if you have any questions at all. Ruby@teenyoga.com, info@teenyoga.com, or Charlotta@teenyoga.com. And if you have any questions on the research front, Nick Carney at gmail.com is our research director, who you just met then. Thank you very much. Lovely to speak to you all, and have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.